Welcome to the Neural Implant Podcast, where we talk with the people behind the current events and breakthroughs in brain implants in an understandable way, helping bring together various fields involved in neuroprosthetics. Here is your host, Laden Yurachek.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Neural Implant Podcast. Today's guest is Andy Cornwell, and he is a repeat guest on the show, a favorite of the show. And he's going to be coming on to talk to us about the Cleveland Neurodesign Entrepreneurs Workshop. And before we were talking about Cleveland Biodesign, which is based off of Stanford Biodesign. And Andy's kind of running the Cleveland/Case Western entrepreneurship and translational side of things, especially in the field of neuromodulation. So Andy, welcome on the show again. And yeah, how have things been going? How's the biodesign been going? And then let's talk a little bit about this next project.
Thanks, Laden. It's great to be here. Things have been going real well. Spring finally showed up in Cleveland yesterday. It's been really horrible weather, but now the sun is out and things are looking up. The workshop is going really well. This is our second year we're doing the workshop. So we've extended it by a day this year, and we're very excited about it.
Excellent. So let's talk about it. What is it? What does it entail? How does it work? And you have to sign up for it, right?
Yes. Maybe we'll start with the last one. So registration is an application process. You can find the application at clevelandneurodesign.org. You find all the information you need, I hope. But if you don't, there's some information. There's a fact on that page, of course, and then there's a way to get in contact with me, and I can answer questions. The application deadline is June 30th, and applications are open now. Then a couple weeks after that, we'll provide notifications. The workshop itself is September 22nd to 25th in person here in Cleveland. And the workshop is free to students. So if you're admitted into the program, we provide you with all of the lodging and meals while you're here. We ask you to cover travel costs, but if that's a burden and you could not attend because of that, we have some limited support for travel. Well, don't let that hold you up. The applications are due June 30th, and the workshop is in the end of September here in Cleveland.
Excellent. So what is it all about? And then you said this is going to be the second one. So what was the first one? And then how's the second one going to be different?
The concept is to take the entire biodesign process and compress it into a couple of days. Last year, we did it basically on a Friday and Saturday and Sunday morning. This year, we're doing it on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and Sunday morning. That should give us a little more time to get through some of the material. We found ourselves a little rushed last year, although last year's experience was incredible. We had 32 attendees in 8 teams of 4, and they were given a set of observations to work on as a team before the workshop. So they came to the workshop having done a lot of background diligence into these observations that they were provided. And from the observations, they extracted a handful, 2, 3, 4, 5 clinical needs that arose from those observations. And they did that as a team before the workshop started. Then we went through the biodesign process, and they ended up, the concept is to work through the 3 phases of biodesign. And at the end, you will have not a real company, of course, but a company to pitch back to the faculty. And then the best pitch, which includes the pitch itself, the business plan, the solution, and the need. The best pitch will receive an award at the end. And the pitches last year at the end of this 3 days were just astonishing. They were so good. And it was just so impressive to watch the chaotic creative process over the course of the 3 days slowly coalesce into these just wonderful, awesome ideas, and that watch how the teams work together and worked with the faculty and the mentors that they were provided to come up with the solutions they had at the end were just incredible that people could come up with this in 3 days. So I was very proud of the process last year and the team that put it together and the teams that participated. And this year is pretty similar with a little bit of extension on it.
Yeah, very cool. That sounds almost like a hackathon, and that you have to come up with something very quickly. And in this case, it's a pitch for a neuromodulation device and company, everything like this. And then you said that the pitches were really good. Did anything come out of it? Were there any companies formed, or did something go further than that? Or do you know anything about that?
None of the teams that I know of started a company as a result of what they did in neurodesign. I don't think. I think it's possible, but I don't think so. The main value to the participants is obviously understanding the knowledge and the process, the teamwork, and then the contact with our faculty who are just world class from around the world, and the amount of networking time and exposure to colleagues who have this sort of entrepreneurial spirit, and then the mentors who are in the field, I think is the really invaluable part to the student.
Okay, sounds good. Hey guys, just a quick pause to talk about our show sponsor, Iris Biomedical. Iris Biomedical provides a portfolio of neural sensing and simulation platforms and components to accelerate early-stage medical device companies through preclinical and early feasibility studies. Iris is an ideal partner for companies with limited budgets or resources to invest in developing a new platform from the ground up. Their experienced engineering team, in-house cleanroom facilities, and ISO 13485 certified quality management system allow for prototyping and early-stage commercial production. Be sure to tell them you heard about it on the Neural Implant Podcast. That'll really help us out. Thanks. Now, back to the show. So who should sign up? Do you have to have already had many successful companies, exits, made millions of dollars off of your company, or is it just people that are interested? And do you have to be an expert, a PhD in neuromodulation, or who should and should not sign up?
You do not have to be a billionaire interested in neurotechnology to take the course. Although I wonder sometimes if some of the billionaires interested in neurotechnology couldn't benefit from a little background in the field. But the course is aimed at people who are just starting their careers. So these are physicians or other providers who are early in their careers, fellows, postdocs, or people who have just graduated with PhDs, people who maybe have MBAs and are just starting in their field. But the key is really to have sort of an entrepreneurial spirit and be committed and engaged to the process. That's the key. We try to put together diverse teams. So last year, we had probably half of the applicants, maybe just slightly more, were PhDs or some actually still pursuing a PhD in a neurotechnology related field. So biomedical engineering or neuroscience in some cases. We had neurologists, we had neurosurgeons, we had MBAs, we had other people from industry who just took some time to come. So these are people who had graduated with marketing degrees and found themselves working for the Boston Scientifics of the world and showed up at the workshop just to learn more about the process, the design thinking process. So very diverse group of people, but really exceptional candidates. Anybody can apply to the program. I will say people with undergraduate degrees probably don't have the breadth of experience that would make them competitive candidates, but I'm certainly not willing to rule them out. So if you have an exceptional resume and a desire and a real passion to learn about this stuff, then you should definitely apply.
Interesting. Yeah, that sounds very exciting. And was it with you that we were talking that some job, basically headhunters came to this and were looking at people, or was that a different program or what?
We didn't have headhunters at our program per se, although I think that this is a very interesting set of connections. So the workshop is free to students because it's supported by industry. So we had Medtronic was our main supporter last year, and we also received support from the Cleveland FES Center, from Abbott, from what at the time was called Facebook Reality Labs, but it may be called something meta-ish now. We had support from IEEE Brain, from Neurotech Reports, and from Ripple. Several of those companies found employees that they met at the workshop. So they came there. They provided a lot of expertise and mentorship to the teams. And through that process, we're able to basically conduct a 3-day long live action interview process, select some or make some offers to candidates. I think they ended up hiring 5 people out of that program. So we don't have headhunters per se, but we've had a lot of success pairing companies with talent, super talented participants of the program.
Okay, very cool. So what's the intention of this workshop? Why are you running it? Why are you doing it again after the first year?
The biodesign process in general exists. It's born out of the idea that innovation is not a Eureka moment. It's not something that just happens to people. It's a discipline that can be learned. And the discipline of innovation is what the workshop is about. So in many cases, especially people coming from academia, come up with a concept or an idea and look for a solution in the market where they can apply that. We call that kind of a technology push mode. Like this is the hammer looking for a nail. And the biodesign process really flips that on its head and makes sure that you understand the nail really thoroughly before you design the hammer you're going to hit it. And so we use the biodesign curriculum as our guidepost. We work very closely with our friends at Stanford who have perfected this process. But that starts with the identification phase, which is really the needs finding and needs screening part. And then from there, once you've clearly identified and understood a clinical need, you move to the invent stage of the process where you literally invent a solution. So you start by inventing hundreds and hundreds of solutions, and then you gradually whittle down to things that are more and more appropriate. And this is what the workshop does during the weekend. Late night brainstorms with your team. We have last year, we had a giant room in our hotel. Each of the teams had a space in that room, and Abbott actually sponsored the caffeine station. So we had, all sorts of snacks and coffee and Red Bull and all sorts of stuff. And the teams used all that to stay up and do these late night sessions and really enjoyed it. And then finally, there's the implement phase, which is more about strategy development and business planning. So when you come out with that, you have the clinical need, the problem you're trying to solve, and then something that solves the problem, and then the business plan to implement that in really in healthcare economy in the United States. I'm not sure I answered the question you asked there, Len, but that's the biodesign process. And that structure of innovation is the gold standard. And we really believe that learning that process is critical for success not just for entrepreneurs, but for people in all roles of industry, understanding all those phases and how they fit together.
I'm satisfied with the answer to the question. I think it answered it pretty well, but is that something that you've noticed is lacking? Do you think people need these skills more? Because a lot of times, like these pitch, you said it's more applicable than just the founders, people who are pitching companies, but there's only so many of those, and let's say dozens of those kind of roles per, year or something like that. So is that something, how does that help other people, I guess, if you're not founding a company, if you're not like pitching for investment, who else could that help, that design process idea?
I think in general, our system of translating medical devices could stand to be a lot more efficient. There are real clinical needs, patients waiting for solutions, not just in medical devices. They're waiting for therapeutics, they're waiting for devices, they're waiting for home health care and physical therapy and all sorts of things that we can invent solutions for. And the inefficiency of the process, that there are all of these problems waiting to be solved. And just the bottleneck of trying to weed through the best solutions that work, that are not just good ideas, but investable solutions and then investable companies. That process takes forever, and it's frustrating and inefficient for everybody. It's frustrating for the patients. It's frustrating for the healthcare economy. It's frustrating for the venture capital. It's frustrating for the entrepreneurs and for the inventors. So we think that understanding this process of innovation and understanding the discipline behind it can help us move things along more quickly and more efficiently to get the solutions to patients that we know they need.
So it is still with the intention that the people would be able to start a company eventually. Like I'm thinking, could this set of thinking be useful for a product that's already been translated?
Absolutely, I think so. So if you work for a big medical device company, like if I work for Medtronic, all of these functions that we're doing, these 6 phases of the biodesign process, exist within the company. They're called different things. Instead of needs finding, they're called upstream marketing. And the idea that you're designing a product with a customer in mind, but it has to fit within an economic set of constraints. You're working on a smaller piece of the puzzle, but it's critical to understand the entire picture. And it's very difficult, I think, we have certainly seen it's difficult for young graduates who are just coming into a system like that. It takes a long time to grasp the big picture and how all the pieces fit together. And becoming an efficient operator in an environment like that, is a challenge. So we think we can jumpstart that process. Now, I will say, I think it's the course work itself, like the didactic work itself, is focused on the concept of starting a company, starting with a need. That's the bread and butter of this. And that's where this starts. That's where most medical device innovation takes place. But I think it's broadly applicable beyond.
Okay. So let's say this is interesting for somebody in the audience, but maybe they are just an undergraduate, have only an undergraduate degree and wouldn't be able to qualify this time or are unable to attend or, applied and weren't accepted this year. What takeaways, what kind of learning experiences would you want them to learn? You already talked about a few, but what's the kind of main thing that people should learn, even if they don't go to the workshop?
That's a great question. I think we're looking for a breadth of experience. So I would identify areas where you have a lot of things and then go do things that aren't in that space, things that make you uncomfortable, and expand your envelope a little bit. So if you're a biomedical engineer and you focused on that for a long time, if you're an undergraduate biomedical engineer, for instance, go take an applied circuits course and actually physically build something. We don't, in biomedical engineering undergrad, maybe spend as much time as we should building things. But if you're an electrical engineer and you've, got analog circuits under your belt, go intern or see if you can shadow in a clinical space and expand your envelope and learn new skills and new experiences that are beyond your comfort zone. That desire to have those new experiences and put yourself in learning situations that are uncomfortable and challenging, those are the hallmarks, I think, of the successful candidates to our program. So if that was something that was holding you back or you don't think you're far enough along, those are the kinds of experiences that I would recommend to not only make you a good candidate for the workshop, but those are the kind of things that set you up for success in entrepreneurship as well. The ability to be effective in uncomfortable situations and not overwhelmed by the challenge of it.
Be comfortable at being uncomfortable.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Cool. Andy, I think this is really cool. I'm excited about this program. Hopefully I'll be able to attend or help out some way. I think it'll be really cool. So is there anything that we didn't talk about that you wanted to mention?
I don't think so. Maybe I'll just review the agenda briefly. We arrive on Thursday night and we've got just team building, some overview stuff that night. We've got some fun team building activities planned that evening. There's a career fair on Thursday, a neurotechnology career fair at Case on Thursday evening. And then Friday, we jump right in. Teams are assigned an advisor that works with them throughout the process. And then they jump into different mentor groups to vet their idea as they go along. Saturday, again, sets of didactic lectures intermingled with mentorship sessions and networking events. And then Sunday, we really focus on polishing the pitch. There's an interactive kind of pitch workshop. And then we pitch about noon on Sunday and fly out Sunday afternoon. So again, those applications are due on June 30th. And there are ways to contact me at clevelandneurodesign.org if you have any questions.
Excellent. I think this is a great program and hope everybody who's listening applies. Thanks so much, Andy.
Me too. Thanks, Laden.
Hope you enjoyed the show and were able to learn something new, bringing together different fields in novel ways. Until next time on the Neural Implant Podcast.